So my question for each of you is, how will this ballot measure ensure that clean energy development has a place in a well-regulated open market? And how will the restructured market ensure that all customers have the opportunity to access clean energy to power their homes and businesses?
I'll start from the group that's helping to lead the campaign. I think in the context of how it's looked in other markets is important. We adopted a set of principles for the Yes on Question 3 that address exactly that, and we worked with environmental and consumer advocate groups to make sure that we were hitting on these points. In fact, the genesis of Question 3 was to deliver low-cost renewable energy to all Nevadans, because there's no reason that we shouldn't be utilizing the resources. John was talking about the resources we all know exist in this state, and to do it at the most affordable cost possible, and with an understanding that an open competitive market will help deliver the best cost possible. But back to the principles that we adopted, what we look to do is say, how do we move Nevada on a track to be competitive from a renewable energy standpoint, not just to make sure that we protect what's already in law under the RPS, but how we can talk about moving that forward. And not just because it's the right thing to do. And first and foremost, it is the right thing to do. But second, when we look at attracting companies and we talk about economic development, this is critical for the future of our state. All the companies that we keep identifying as the ones who we want to bring to Nevada are looking for low-cost renewable energy. The companies that are already here in the state, the gaming industry, who are global leaders and are the reason that we are on the map and we're doing the things we're doing, are looking for low-cost renewable energy. And so we wanted to make sure that that was one of our founding principles. We also want to make sure that as we go forward, because from our perspective, obviously we want this on the ballot, and it is on the ballot. We want it to pass here on November 8th, but we also don't want to wait till 2023. We want to address it the next legislative session in 2017, because there's no better time than the present to begin making these changes. And one of our key principles also is to make sure that we're protecting those that are most vulnerable and continuing to have consumer protections in place. And I see the Bureau of Consumer Protections is here today, so it should be music to your ears. We really believe in what you do is the right thing in protecting all ratepayers in Nevada and making sure that those protections are in place. And these are the adopted principles. And they're not just us saying that. It is who we are. It's what we believe in. That was the founding ethos of Question 3. And so to be able to work with partners and bring more and more people to the table so that they have a voice as we begin to talk about the restructuring and the creation of a well-regulated open market, that we do this in a way that is cognizant of the importance of renewables as well as the protection of all ratepayers here in Nevada.
John, given your experience, particularly with ratepayers at various levels, it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective on this question in terms of how it could impact the vast range of customers who will be impacted.
Yeah, well, I think it's a huge opportunity for clean energy, but it's also an opportunity for customers. And there's a slight difference between the two. I'm a customer, and actually I use my power of choice in Pennsylvania and have for a long time, as soon as I could, to buy 100% renewable energy. And I buy 100% renewable energy from wind farms built in Pennsylvania. I don't buy Texas rec credits because I want my dollars to support construction of wind farms in my state, in my airshed. Obviously, carbon avoided anywhere helps to deal with climate change, but less mercury in Pennsylvania is something I care about. Less soot in Pennsylvania is something I care about. Less sulfur, nitrogen, and smog in Pennsylvania is something I care about. So I want my electric dollars supporting clean facilities, clean generation facilities in Pennsylvania. So the power of choice does help a consumer allow his or her preferences be expressed with their dollars. I don't want to support a coal plant. I live in the 3 Mile Island nuclear evacuation area. I don't want to support nuclear power. I want to support renewables, and I get to do that with the power of choice. Obviously, the power of choice has been used by some very large retailers, big box stores and others. tech sector is another example. So choice can, in fact, bring revenues to the table that will bring forth more renewables than if you don't have choice. That's one big advantage. I would say there's 2 or 3 things that are very important, both for clean energy and for consumers. One has already been emphasized, but one more time, you've got to have a real-time market monitor of the wholesale market. That's the cop on the beat. And as I think the changes that were made at FERC that John Wellenhoff talked about are real and important. But you need the local cop on the beat. God bless Washington, D.C. I'm not one of these people who bash the federal government. Very, very important. That's probably a dangerous thing to say in Nevada. There I've said it. But you need the local cop on the beat. So that wholesale market that Nevada would be part of, you better have a market monitor in place to protect consumers as that goes forward. The other thing that is a big opportunity for consumers and clean energy is on the demand side of these markets. The cleanest energy source is energy efficiency. It's the megawatt. And if you empower consumers with smart metering and other technology, smart thermostats to control their demand, that will help their pocketbook, and it will also help the air quality and the environment. That's a huge win-win opportunity. And if you want a really strong way to guard against market power, empower consumers on the demand side of the market, so that if prices go up too high, they have ability to move to lower priced hours of the day. That's just one example. There's plenty of things that consumers can do if they have the technology in the home or business to protect themselves from high prices. And let's have one last statement. High prices actually do serve a purpose. They are signals to consumers, and they're signals to investors. Not all high prices are market manipulated prices. And you have to have a willingness to accept those signals while empowering consumers to manage them either through long-term contracts. I have a 2-year wind contract, and my price is fixed for 2 years. Or through these demand-side technology instruments that allows consumers to control their power and the ultimate bill they pay.
It's a very impressive panel, and I'm speaking not like I'm impressive at all, but everything he said there is so very, very important that you have to have the cop on the beat, and you have to have the cop on the beat making sure that no one's ever gaming the system. So the reason why I think I was asked to be a participant in this panel is to talk a little bit about what the markets look like after restructuring. And I want to use Texas as an example because that's a marketplace that has worked very, very well. They've had their fair share of hiccups. I'm not going to lie. There was a period in time in there about 6-8 years ago when no one was building new generation because the markets weren't signaling to build new generation. In fact, there was an overabundance of electricity in the grid, and there was no driving force for building new generation, but the grid operator was looking at a whole bunch of retirements of generation coming up, and there was a panic. There was a lot of worry. But it all worked itself out because markets do what markets do. Investors like myself found the signals that we were looking for, and everything worked out fine. Let me delve into a little bit to tell you what the world looks like post restructuring. If everybody's got their pen and paper handy, I want you to write down texaspowertochoose.org. TexasPowerToChoose.org is a clearinghouse or a database, if you will, of all of the retail competitive power providers in the state of Texas that are competing for people's rate dollars. And when you go to that website, on the front page of that website, they're going to ask for a zip code and type in 75094, which is a Texas zip code that will get you into that website. And what you're going to find out is you're going to find probably 150 to 250 offers. Everything from 100% renewable to whatever you want, 2-year contract, 3-year contracts. That's what choice looks like. You've got dozens and dozens of companies that are pushing for your ratepayer dollar. Now, the interesting thing about it is electricity is a commodity. So at the end of the day, you've got that many people competing for your business, and they're all playing in the same commodity field. There's not a lot to differentiate them. So the next thing that they've gone to is that they're offering add-ons. For example, he brought up the issue of smart meters. Getting a smart meter in Texas is about as easy as getting a speeding ticket. I mean, you switch electricity providers and they'll send you one whether you want one or not. This is innovation. When people talk about retail choice, they fixate on the idea of saving some money. And that is such a very, very small part of the equation that it's really almost laughable. Because you give the consumer the power to choose. They may not necessarily pick the cheapest solution. They may actually pick something that's near and dear to their heart or something that's beneficial to their business or their household individually. Now, the next thing that you'll find when you look into the Texas marketplace is you find something called free nights and weekends. And when I bring this one up, this one always opens everybody's eyes. And let me explain to you how free nights and weekends happen. Free nights and weekends happened about 8 years ago or so when the market started to collapse and there was an overabundance of electricity on the grid. What people don't know from the perspective of a trader, this is common marketplace for me, but people in the audience won't know this. Electricity trades just like any other commodity does. However, when it gets down to zero, and if there is such an unbelievable abundance in the market, the price of electricity will actually go negative, where the generators are beholden to the buyers to pay them to take the electricity. That sounds rather simplistic, and it's much more complex than that, but that really is what happens. So what ends up happening is you end up with free nights and because the generators and the retail power providers decided that it made better sense to give electricity to the consumers in the off-peak hours than it was to wear the market risk. So in Texas, we have products where you can lock in your daytime electricity rate at a fixed price, and from 5 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning, your electricity is free. It's free from 5 o'clock at night, I believe it's 5 o'clock, could be 6, don't hold me to that, on Friday night until 8 o'clock on Monday morning, your electricity is free. This is innovation. Okay? Now, what did Texas get out of that? We have 17,000 megawatts of wind online in Texas. You don't ever hear any Texas politicians talking about the Clean Air Act because Texas doesn't have an EPA problem when it comes to their coal fleet unless there's something I don't know about that I haven't heard of. So, what that tells me is the consumer's smart enough to pick what's in their own best interest. Now, to explain to you personally, everybody has a driving force behind why they get out of bed in the morning, why they're passionate about something. For me, the reason why I'm passionate about renewable energy, the reason why I'm so passionate about wind in particular, and why I like building big wind farms, even though I think the days of building big wind farms is probably going to come to an end. The best sites have been locked up and the world's moving on. But here's the thing you have to remember. Wind is the only form of commercially scalable electricity that doesn't consume any electricity, or excuse me, does not consume any water. Now that may not sound like much, but for somebody that comes from central Nebraska in a fully overappropriated NRD district that's in a lawsuit with Kansas every time the sun comes up, it's a big deal. And for me, I was left scratching my head why some of the most wind-rich states in the country were some of the states that had the absolute least amount of wind online. And it's very simple. You had utilities that, for whatever reasons, I think we probably all have a pretty good idea what it was, didn't seem to want to embrace that. Now they're in a problem. They're in a serious problem because I can tell you the wind resources that we're bringing online today are coming online at under 2 cents a kilowatt hour. That's almost impossible to beat in this marketplace. So I hope that when this is all said and done, I could sit up here and just rattle on for hours about all the different things and market mechanisms and all the things that we do as a business. Afterwards, if people want to come up and we want to talk shop, that's perfectly fine. But I hope I can give you guys about a 35,000-foot view of what the world looks like if you do have retail choice. Thank you.
I see a few millennials out there, and I actually have 2 of my own. But I have a lot of confidence in the millennials. The reason I do is because small business is driven by the millennials. Technology is a big piece of that. As my fellow panelists have said, the ability to use technology to minimize consumption is part of the story that I tell in my business. For all of you small businesses, you know technology is going to change probably every 6 to 12 months. Your businesses will probably change every 6 to 12 months, or you're going to have to adapt every 6 to 12 months. It's important that you look at the ability to manage your cost. And managing your cost and being able to identify what those costs are is critical to the success of your business. I'm in the interiors business. I see big business and I see small business. And it's changing at a rate, I've been doing this for 25 years. It's changing at a rate that I'm having a hard time keeping up with. And what I mean by that, I believe by the year 2020, 62% of the workforce will be under the age of 35. They consume power and they use technology a lot differently than baby boomers do. So I encourage you, as small businesses, to read up on all the available choices. I encourage you to look at your operating expenses as an overhead that doesn't always have to go up. I think the point was made when you look at how you operate your business. You can lessen the consumption. And if you lessen the consumption, you are not beholden to the price increases because you have that ability to control that. So everything that's been shared from the panelists today relates to not only, in my opinion, big business, but also small business. Some of the big concerns of small business is how do I afford this technology? Well, the reality is that technology is getting cheaper and cheaper every day. And if you educate yourself and you have the ability to look and see what's available out there, you can have those controls in place. So I recommend that all businesses, but definitely small businesses, consider the same opportunities as big businesses.
Cool. Okay, now we're going